Church in the morning, shrine in the evening. They say worshipping your ancestors is evil. So why would a Christian woman knowingly marry a man who bows to the spirits of his fathers? That was what the villagers whispered whenever Uchenna and Ifunanya passed by together. Ifunanya was a devoted Catholic woman. She prayed every morning, attended Mass faithfully, and believed that God alone decided the times and seasons of life. Her rosary never left her neck, even when she went to the stream or the farm. Uchenna, her husband, believed differently. He honored the ways of his forefathers, poured libation at the shrine behind his hut, and spoke to the ancestors the way a son speaks to his fathers. To him, the ancestors were not evil, they were guardians. Whenever they walked together through the village paths, heads turned. Some people shook their heads in quiet judgment, others watched with curiosity. A few simply wondered how two people so different could live under one roof without tearing each other apart. But the truth was simple. They married out of love. Uchenna was not a poor man, and he was not a rich one either. He lived comfortably. His compound was neat, his barn was never empty, and his household never lacked food. He was a full-time ancestor worshipper, born into the calling, trained by his father and grandfather before him. People came to Uchenna with their troubles. When brothers quarreled over land, they came to him. When families argued over inheritance, they came to him. When someone had strange dreams or unexplained fears, they came to him. Uchenna listened. He poured libation, he spoke to the spirits, he advised with wisdom passed down through generations. He never demanded evil sacrifices, he never harmed anyone, he never used his position to frighten people. In fact, many said quietly, Uchenna has a clean heart. Ifunanya knew all this before she married him. She was a devoted Catholic woman. From childhood, she had been raised in the church. She believed strongly in prayer, fasting, confession, and trusting God with every matter of life. She attended Mass faithfully and never joked with her faith. Yet, she loved Uchenna, and Uchenna loved her. From the very beginning, before the bride price was paid and before the marriage wine was shared, they sat together and agreed on one thing. Their beliefs would never fight inside their home. Ifunanya would go to church and pray there. She would not pray loudly inside the house. She would not bring holy water or rosaries into arguments. Uchenna would go to his shrine behind the compound. He would not perform rituals inside the house. He would not invite spirits into their marriage. Their home would remain a place of peace. And they kept that promise. Ifunanya never mocked her husband's calling. Uchenna never mocked his wife's faith. When Ifunanya went to church, Uchenna escorted her to the road and waited until she disappeared from sight. When Uchenna went to the shrine, Ifunanya stayed back, minding the home. They did not argue over belief. They did not force each other to change. Love covered the difference. For the first 4 years of their marriage, their home was filled with laughter. They woke up together, they ate together, they walked side by side. Ifunanya was known as a good wife, kind, respectful, and diligent. Uchenna was known as a good husband, calm, thoughtful, and responsible. They attended village gatherings together and returned home together. People admired them quietly. Some women said, "If only my husband treated me like that." Some men said, "If only my wife respected me like that." Their house was not loud, but it was happy. Then time began to speak. 1 year passed. 2 years passed. 3 years passed. 4 years passed. Their house remained the same. No child's cry, no small feet running across the compound, no voice calling mama or papa. At first, nobody said anything. Then whispers started. Soft ones. "She is beautiful, but where is the child? He is strong, but who will inherit his shrine?" At the stream, women spoke quietly. At the market, men murmured under their breath. Ifunanya heard them, but she kept quiet. Uchenna heard them too, but he said nothing. They pretended not to notice, but the whispers grew louder. 4 years is too long. Who will succeed Uchenna when he is gone? What if his ancestors are angry? What if her God is blocking the way?
The questions followed them everywhere. They followed Ifunanya to church. They followed Uchenna to the shrine. They sat with them during meals. They crept into their silence at night. For the first time since their marriage, something heavy entered their home. Not anger, not hatred, but worry.
Uchenna began to notice how Ifunanya would sometimes pause in the middle of her chores, lost in thought. Ifunanya noticed how Uchenna would sit longer than usual at the shrine, staring into nothing. Still, they did not fight. They did not blame each other, but silence settled between them. And in a village where children were seen as proof of blessing, silence was louder than any argument. That silence would soon test their love, their faith, and the careful balance they had built. For a long time, Uchenna and Ifunanya chose silence over argument. They knew the village had opinions, they knew mouths were restless, but they believed that if they kept their home peaceful, the noise outside would eventually die down. So they lived as they always had. Every morning, Ifunanya woke early. She swept the compound, prepared food, and set out for church when it was time. She prayed quietly, never shouting her prayers, never asking loudly for a child. She had learned that desperation only made pain heavier. Uchenna, on the other hand, followed the path laid before him by blood and tradition. He visited his shrine regularly, tending to it with care. People still came to him with their problems, and he continued to help them as best as he could. Yet for all the problems he solved for others, one remained stubborn in his own home. They had no child. At first, the village watched patiently. After all, some women took time. But as years passed, patience turned into judgment. The women were the loudest. At the stream, Ifunanya heard them clearly. She has been married long enough. Does her womb sleep? Is she really a woman? Sometimes the words were spoken with laughter, other times with bitterness. Ifunanya did not respond. She bent over her calabash, fetched her water, and walked away. At the market, insults followed her like flies. One woman said openly, "Why do you still walk like someone with pride? Pride does not give birth." Another laughed. Maybe her God has forgotten her name. Each word landed like a slap. Still, Ifunanya said nothing. She returned home each day with calm on her face, but inside she was breaking quietly. At night, when she lay beside Uchenna, she sometimes turned away so he would not see the tears she wiped with the edge of her wrapper. Uchenna noticed the change. He noticed how she no longer joined women gatherings, how she avoided naming ceremonies, how she stayed indoors when children played nearby. One evening, he sat beside her and asked gently, "Do they still talk?" Ifunanya hesitated, then nodded. "They say a woman without a child is not worthy to be called a woman," she said softly. Uchenna clenched his jaw. "They talk too much. Do not let them steal your peace." But even as he said it, he knew peace was already being stolen, because the whispers did not stop with Ifunanya. They reached him too. Men began to speak to him differently. "Who will succeed you?" one elder asked casually. "Who will take over your shrine when you are gone?" another added. Uchenna laughed them off, but the question stayed with him long after the conversations ended. That night, sleep did not come easily. And when it finally did, Uchenna dreamed. In his dream, he was standing in his compound, holding a newborn baby boy. The child was small, wrapped in white cloth, but his grip was strong. When Uchenna looked into his face, the baby smiled. Uchenna woke up suddenly. His heart was racing. The image refused to leave him. At dawn, he told Ifunanya everything. "I saw a boy," he said, "a son." Ifunanya sat quietly, listening. "A boy?" she repeated. "Yes," Uchenna said. "I was holding him like he belonged to me." They looked at each other for a long moment. For the first time in years, hope sat between them. That same day, they talked honestly. They agreed not to accuse each other. They agreed not to force beliefs.
They agreed to pray, each in their own way, sincerely. Ifunanya returned to church. She knelt and cried, not loudly, not bitterly, but with surrender. God, she whispered, I have carried shame quietly. If it is your will, remember me. Uchenna went to the shrine. He did not speak proudly. He did not demand. He bowed. And there he made a vow. If you bless my household with a son, he said, he will succeed me. He will stand as chief priest after me and honor our lineage. The words were heavy. He knew promises to the ancestors were not light things. After that day, they waited. Weeks passed, then months. Then one morning, Ifunanya woke feeling different. Her body felt strange. Her heart beat faster. When she confirmed it, she sat down slowly, hands shaking. She was pregnant. When she told Uchenna, he did not shout or dance. He simply sat down and covered his face. He shed tears of joy. The vow he made returned to his mind. He smiled and thanked his ancestors. The village that once mocked them would soon celebrate. But a promise had been spoken. And promises once made always come back to ask for payment. The day the child was born, the village changed its voice. Women who once whispered now sang. Men who once mocked now smiled. The same mouths that asked cruel questions now spoke blessings. Ifunanya gave birth to a healthy baby boy. When Uchenna held the child for the first time, he remembered the dream that had woken him one morning. The small boy wrapped in white cloth, smiling up at him. His hands trembled as he touched the child's chest, feeling the steady beat of life. They named him Nana, a name heavy with meaning, a name that spoke of continuity, a name that carried expectation. The compound that once felt quiet now echoed with sound. A baby's cry, a baby's laughter, a baby's presence. Women rushed in and out carrying gifts. Elders came to see the child. Even those who once insulted Ifunanya now bent down to greet her respectfully. At last, they said, God has answered. The ancestors have smiled. Ifunanya listened, but said nothing. She was too busy being a mother.
From the first day, she loved Nana fiercely. She fed him, bathed him, and carried him everywhere. At night, when he slept against her chest, she whispered prayers over him. Not loud prayers, not forced prayers, just a mother's quiet hopes. Uchenna watched closely. He loved his son deeply. He was proud. He was relieved. And somewhere deep inside him, the promise he made returned to his thoughts. But for now, he pushed it aside. For the first few years of Nana's life, the house knew peace again. The village treated them differently. Women who once avoided Ifunanya now sought her company. They asked her questions, laughed with her, and shared stories. The same people who had called her half a woman now praised her patience. She endured, they said. She waited. She is blessed. Nana grew into a cheerful child. He was calm. He was observant. He was quick to smile. By the time he was 3, people already spoke about him. That boy has sense, one elder remarked. He listens more than he speaks, another added. Uchenna heard these comments and smiled quietly. At 5 years old, something unexpected happened. One Sunday morning, as Ifunanya prepared to leave for church, Nana stood at the door and watched her. "Where are you going?" he asked. "To church," she replied gently. He thought for a moment. "I want to follow you." Ifunanya froze. She had never forced him. She had never asked. She had never spoken much about church to him. "You can stay at home if you want," she said carefully. But Nana shook his head. "I want to see it." Ifunanya felt something stir inside her chest. She nodded and held his hand. They walked together. In church, Nana sat quietly beside her. He watched, he listened, he copied her movements, standing when she stood, kneeling when she knelt. People noticed. Some smiled, some whispered. Uchenna heard about it later that evening. He followed his mother to church today, someone mentioned casually. Uchenna said nothing. He did not stop it. He did not question it. But that same evening, when the sun dipped low, Uchenna called his son. Nana, he said, come. The boy ran to him. Uchenna took him by the hand and led him toward the shrine at the back of the compound. From that day on, it became routine. In the mornings, Nana followed his mother sometimes. In the evenings, he followed his father always. At the shrine, Uchenna spoke softly. These are our fathers, he told him. These are the ones who walked before us. They protect our lineage. Nana listened. He did not ask questions. He did not argue. He stood between two worlds without knowing it. Ifunanya watched from a distance. She did not interfere. She did not protest. She reminded herself of the rule they had set long ago. No gods in the house, no fights over belief.
Still, a quiet unease grew in her heart. Uchenna, on his part, began to feel the weight of expectation. People started speaking again, but differently this time. That boy must succeed you, elders said. He must carry the shrine forward. Uchenna nodded politely, but inside, something shifted. Nana was still a child, yet everyone was already deciding his future. The village celebrated him, but the road before him was already being drawn. One evening, Uchenna sat alone at the shrine longer than usual, staring into the stillness. He remembered the promise he made, and for the first time since Nana's birth, he wondered, what happens when a child grows into his own mind? Behind him, in the house, Ifunanya watched her son sleep peacefully. Between the shrine and the church, a quiet question waited, and that question would soon demand an answer. 14 years passed quietly, but quietly does not mean peacefully. Nana grew tall. His shoulders broadened, his voice deepened, and his eyes carried thought beyond his age. The village watched him closely, the way people watch a child they believe already belongs to something bigger than himself. To the villagers, Nana was not just Uchenna's son, he was the future of the shrine. But to Nana, he was simply a boy searching for where his spirit felt at home. For years, he followed both parents without complaint. In the mornings, he went with his mother to church. In the evenings, he followed his father to the shrine. He listened to prayers and chants, watched candles burn and libations poured. He respected both paths, but respect did not mean belonging. As Nana grew older, he began to feel restless at the shrine. He stood there, watching his father speak to the ancestors, but his heart remained distant. The words did not settle in him. The rituals felt heavy, not comforting. At church, it was different. He listened to the priest speak about service, humility, sacrifice. He liked the silence that followed prayer. He liked the way people knelt without fear. He liked the idea of giving his life to something that did not demand inheritance, bloodline, or fear. One evening, as Nana walked home from church with his mother, Nana spoke. "Mama," he said calmly, "I do not want to go to the shrine anymore." Ifunanya stopped. She turned slowly and looked at her son. "What do you mean?" she asked. "I want to serve God," he replied. "I want to become a priest, not for the ancestors, for God." Ifunanya's heart tightened. She had prayed for this child. She had loved him freely, but she knew what this decision meant. She did not smile. She did not shout. She only said, "Have you told your father?" Nana shook his head. That evening, Nana did not follow Uchenna to the shrine. Uchenna noticed immediately. "Where is Nana?" he asked. "He stayed back," Ifunanya replied carefully. Uchenna frowned. "Why?" "He says he no longer wants to go."
Silence fell between them. Uchenna did not speak again that night. The next evening, Uchenna called his son. "Nana," he said, "come." Nana stood before him, steady but nervous. "Why didn't you come to the shrine yesterday?" "I don't want to go anymore," Nana answered quietly. Uchenna's eyes hardened. "This is not a decision for a child," Nana replied. "I am not a child and I know what I want." Uchenna stood up.
"For years," he said slowly, "you have followed me. For years, the ancestors have watched you grow. And now, you say you are leaving?" "I am not leaving you," Nana said. "I am choosing my path." Uchenna's voice rose. "You do not choose when a promise has been made." That was the first time anger entered their home openly. Uchenna walked to the shrine alone that night. He stayed there long after darkness settled. He remembered the day he begged the ancestors for his son. He remembered the vow he made that his son would succeed him. Promises to the ancestors were not spoken lightly. To break one was to invite consequences. The next morning, the village noticed the tension. Uchenna no longer smiled easily. Ifunanya moved carefully around her husband. Nana kept to himself. People began to whisper again. "The boy is refusing the shrine. He wants church. He is disrespecting tradition." Elders came to speak to Uchenna. "You must correct him early," they advised. "A son who rejects his ancestors rejects himself." Uchenna nodded, but inside, fear mixed with anger. He tried again with Nana. He spoke of lineage, of duty, of responsibility, but Nana stood firm. "I will not go," he said. "I respect you, father, but my heart is not there." That was when peace finally left their home. Meals became quiet. Conversations shortened. Silence replaced laughter. Uchenna began to see Nana not as a son, but as a broken promise. Ifunanya watched everything. She had never forced faith on her child. She had never brought church into the house. But now, her son had chosen. And her husband could not accept it. One evening, Uchenna stood before Nana and said words that shook the walls. "You belong to the ancestors, whether you like it or not." Nana looked at him calmly. "No," he said, "I belong to myself." That night, Uchenna returned to the shrine and knelt. And for the first time, he did not ask for blessings. He asked for strength to enforce his promise. That was the night their home lost its peace. From that day, Nana and his father lived under the same roof like strangers who shared blood but not peace. They greeted each other out of duty, not warmth. They ate from the same pot, but their hearts no longer met. When Nana returned from church, Uchenna avoided his eyes. When Uchenna left for the shrine at dusk, Nana stayed behind, pretending not to notice. The house had not changed. The people inside it had.
Uchenna began to spend more time at the shrine than before. Every evening, he went there alone, carrying offerings, whispering prayers that grew heavier with each passing day. He knelt longer. He spoke louder. He pleaded more. "Give me time," he begged the ancestors. "Soften his heart. Let him see reason. Let him return to what is his." The ancestors did not answer. Days passed. Weeks followed. Nana did not change his mind. Instead, he grew more certain. He rose early for church. He read the scriptures when others slept. He spoke less, listened more, and kept his resolve quiet but firm. The more Uchenna pushed, the more Nana withdrew. Ifunanya watched helplessly. She tried to speak peace into the house, but peace had already packed its load and left. She pleaded with Uchenna to be patient. "He is still young," she said. "Let him grow. Let him choose with wisdom." Uchenna shook his head. "This is not a choice," he replied. "It is duty." At the shrine, Uchenna's prayers changed. At first, he asked for guidance. Then he asked for signs. Finally, he began to ask questions that frightened even him. What happened to a promise broken? The fire at the shrine crackled. The silence pressed in. In his whispered one night,
What becomes of a priest without a successor? A thought began to form, slow, dangerous, and stubborn. If Nana would not accept the ancestors willingly, then perhaps he was never meant to live outside them. The thought shocked him at first. He pushed it away. Each time Nana refused the shrine, the thought grew stronger. One evening, Uchenna stood at the edge of the compound and watched his son kneel in prayer, eyes closed, lips moving softly. Something inside him snapped. "That God is stealing my son," he muttered. That night, he did not sleep. At dawn, he returned to the shrine and spoke words he had never imagined would leave his mouth. "If he will not belong to you in life," Uchenna said, voice trembling, "then take him so he does not belong to another god." The wind shifted, the fire flickered. Uchenna straightened his back. "I would rather be childless," he said firmly, "than raise a son who will not continue my lineage." He rose from the shrine with a terrible calm. When he returned home, Nana was sweeping the compound. Their eyes met briefly. Uchenna looked away. The decision had been made, and the house that once held love now held a secret heavy enough to break it apart. That was when Nana understood. His father was not planning to convince him anymore. He was planning something else.
That night, as Nana lay on his mat, he could not sleep. His heart beat too loudly in his chest. Every sound in the compound felt sharper than usual. The creak of wood, the rustle of leaves, the distant chant from the shrine. Then Uchenna passed by his doorway. He did not stop. He did not speak, but his shadow lingered for a second longer than necessary. In that moment, Nana's fear found a name. My father might kill me. Not out of hatred, not out of madness, but out of belief. A belief stronger than love. That was when Nana knew he had only one choice. He waited until the compound was quiet, until the night settled fully. Then he rose, folded his clothes, and tied them into a small bundle. He did not wake his mother. He did not leave a message. He knew if he did, she would try to protect him, and protection would only delay what his father had already decided. He stepped out into the darkness and followed the bush path leading to the next village. Each step felt like tearing himself away from his childhood. Fear walked with him, but so did relief. With every distance he put between himself and the compound, his chest loosened slightly. Before dawn, Nana reached his uncle's house, the younger brother of Uchenna, a man who had always watched quietly, who had never spoken against his elder brother, but had never encouraged him either. When the door opened and the uncle saw Nana standing there, dusty and shaking, he did not ask questions. "You are safe here," he said simply, and for the first time in many nights, Nana slept. Back home, the compound woke to silence. Ifunanya noticed it first. Nana's mat was empty. His sandals were gone. The small bundle of clothes he kept beside his mat was missing. Her heart dropped. She searched the kitchen, the backyard, the path to the stream. She called his name again and again until her voice broke. When Uchenna came out and saw her distress, she ran to him. "Our son," she cried. "He is not here." Uchenna walked into the boy's room, looked around once and came back out slowly. He did not look shocked. He looked confirmed. "So," he said quietly, "it has happened." Ifunanya grabbed his arm. "Please, let us go and look for him." Uchenna pulled away sharply. "There is nothing to search for." Then the blame began. Uchenna's voice filled the compound as years of bitterness spilled out. He accused Ifunanya of filling Nana's head with church words. He accused her of inviting a strange god into their marriage, a god who waited until everything was settled before interfering. "This strange god wants to reap where he did not sow," he said bitterly. "For 15 years you prayed, nothing happened." Ifunanya fell to her knees. "God gave us this child." Uchenna shook his head. "My ancestors gave me this son. I made a vow. I paid the price." He paced the compound, his anger feeding itself. "They were silent for 15 years. Now they answered me. And this God of yours wants to take him away from me?" Ifunanya cried openly. "Nana is not a sacrifice." Uchenna stopped pacing and looked down at her. "He is my vow," he said. That evening, Uchenna returned to the shrine.
He knelt where he had knelt countless times before. He spoke to the ancestors in a low, steady voice. He asked for time. He begged for patience. He promised offerings. But the silence pressed heavily on him. He stood and walked around the shrine, his thoughts turning darker with each step. Many ideas crossed his mind. He could search neighboring villages. He could send men to bring Nana back by force. He could wait. But only one thought refused to leave him. 7 years passed. 7 years in which Uchenna never stopped thinking about his son. At first, he believed Unana would return on his own. When that did not happen, his thoughts turned darker. He began to believe the ancestors would eventually lead the boy back, whether Unana wanted it or not. Uchenna started seeking him spiritually. He believed distance did not matter to the ancestors. If they could bless him with a son after 15 years of waiting, they could also summon that son back to where he belonged. And if the promise he made had been delayed for too long, then it had to be completed, by force if necessary. In his heart, one plan became clear. If Unana returned, he would be used to fulfill the vow. Meanwhile, far away from the village, Unana was living the life he had once only dreamed of. He had grown into a disciplined man, firm in his faith, committed to God. He had become a priest, fully certain of his calling. But even in peace, his heart was restless. He thought often of his parents, of his mother's tears, of his father's stubborn pride, and slowly another purpose formed in him. He would return home. Not to run, not to hide, but to save his father. When Unana finally returned to the village, he did not come as a frightened boy. He came as a priest. The village was stunned. Whispers spread quickly. The son who ran away had returned, changed, confident, unshaken. Ifunanya saw him and broke down in tears, thanking God openly. Neighbors gathered, watching in disbelief. But Uchenna stood apart, silent, studying his son carefully. That night, father and son sat under the same roof again. Unana spoke calmly. He spoke of love. He spoke of forgiveness. He spoke of a God who did not demand blood or fear. In his heart, he believed he could still convert his father and save him from the path he was walking. But Uchenna was listening with a different heart. In his mind, another plan was already complete. Unana believed he had returned to bring his father to Christ. Uchenna believed the ancestors had finally returned what was theirs. 2 men, 1 house, 2 beliefs. One planned conversion, the other planned sacrifice. And the question hung heavily in the air. Who do you think will win this fight? Drop your thoughts in the comment section.